slots do you guys have open for that Anthony Joshua fight? Can you talk about that? Can you confirm any negotiations at all?
Yeah, there are discussions with his team. It's not easy, you know, because I think we live in a crazy world right now where everybody wants, you know, just crazy money to even be in fights.
I wanted this on contract, but I'm probably not going to get it.
I know. So he, but I like the fight. I like the fight for many reasons. I mean, aesthetically, Andy don't always look the best, but he can fight. He's fast. He'll be there to win. He's going to have a big Mexican support. He's one of probably 4 guys right now that I think are front runners, and it's really about who takes it first. Do you know what I mean? Like, any one of these guys can phone up and accept a deal, and we could get it done tonight. But it will be in the next 48 hours for sure.
And of course, without giving away any details, but how much is Al Haymon going to come into play to this PBC? I'm not aware, like if he has a contract with PBC, Al Haymon. Or
yeah, I believe he does. I mean, it's up. You know, at the end of the day, if Al doesn't want him to take the opportunity, can he stop him? Maybe, yeah. But I mean, I'd be very surprised if Al really wanted to stand in the way of a fighter like that within his stable, making a lot of money to fight for the world heavyweight title. You know, so you know, I understand that obviously your you know, your Keith Furmans and your Mikey Garcias are really important to your network deals. But Andy Ruiz, you know, I believe that Al would want him to get an opportunity like this. I'd like to think so. So I don't think that's going to really stand in the way. But if he wanted to stop it, he could probably stop it.
Well, not to put you between a tough place and a wall here, but the world according to Bob Arum, if you heard his recent comments, what do you make of that? Do you think that's going to come into play? Or?
Well, that is the world according to Bob Arum, and that's Bob all over. I mean, we made a major offer for Ramirez to fight Maurice Hooker this week. So you can't just have it all one way, you know? So, like, if Ramirez wants to fight, it's all very well saying, well, why not let Errol Spence fight Crawford? Well, why not let Ramirez fight Hooker? So, we'll see. But, you know, I don't see the Crawford Spence fight happening anytime soon, to be honest with you. I think, well, I know Spence is going to fight Porter in the unification. It's a good fight. And then maybe after that, I would love to see it. I think it needs to happen. The problem is when there's enough, when the money's big enough, it happens. But the money's not quite big enough in that fight. See, with Mayweather-Pacquiao, they couldn't stand in the way. As much as they hated each other, they reached a deal.
Yeah.
But at the moment, Crawford-Spence is not a fight where there's so much money you just can't not do it. Hopefully, it'll get there. But certainly, Bob and Heyman's relationship is not the best. And
you guys are in a good place because basically the tickets for the Anthony Joshua fight were sold based off him coming to America, his first fight, and having Andy Ruiz will only be an upgrade from a Jarrell Miller. Can you talk to us about
just the overall? You say it'll be an upgrade?
Yes, sir.
Do you think so?
Andy Ruiz over Jarrell Miller, I think it'll be an upgrade.
Okay.
And it would how would the production of the event, how's that going, like in terms of? Good,
everything's great. We've sold, I don't know, 16, 17,000 tickets. I think he's on the same level as Jarrell Miller. Like, by the way, I think Jarrell Miller I think it's a really good fight, Jarrell Miller against Andy Ruiz. I was actually thinking about it today. He's kind of like the Mexican Jarrell Miller, but hopefully without the peds. So we'll have to see. But you know, we've got a great show. We've got Callum Smith's going to be defending his world title. Katie Taylor's in the undisputed fight on the card as well. Going to have some big other fights announced shortly, so we're ready to go. Just want to nail the opponent this week, get it announced, and.
So the event hasn't suffered economically at all.
No, I mean, you know, you will be allowed to get a refund if you were coming to watch Jarrell Miller. But without sounding arrogant, most people were coming to watch Anthony Joshua and his US debut. But that said, we still need a credible opponent. You know, you're not going to turn up and watch him fight someone outside of the top 10, and you know. So I want someone. Most of all, I want someone that comes to fight. I want someone that actually wants the opportunity to try and win the World Heavyweight Championship at Madison Square Garden. You know, and I know they're going to want great money. That they should, but I don't want that to be the focus, because I've turned some people down because I know that's all they're interested in. And I also don't want someone that's not in training. I want someone that's been in camp, or you know, in Andy's case, just fought. You know, ready to go.
Luis Ortiz recently was reported by Boxing Scene that he asked for $10 million for the AJ fight.
Did he say that?
that's what the boxing scene reported, that number. And that he was only offered $5 million, which was around 200,000 more US dollars than what Joe Miller was going to be guaranteed to get.
All three of those statements are wrong.
But that's what just was being reported.
No, but I'm just telling you, all three of those statements are wrong. So you're wrong what Jarrell Miller was getting, not you, but they were wrong what Luis Ortiz asked for, and they were wrong about what he was offered.
Was Jarrell Miller being offered more, or being guaranteed more, being guaranteed less?
No, not far away from those numbers. Ortiz was offered a lot more than that, what you just said.
A lot more than the $5 million?
Yes, and next week, when everything is said and done, I will expose Team Ortiz in triumphant fashion, because I was really pissed off with that story. I actually texted Jay Jimenez and I said, are you fucking serious? Like, we've been negotiating, it's all in black and white, I'll show you. I can show you it now. I'm not going to do it yet, because I'm fed up with people lying about Anthony Joshua. Now, Joshua's the one who came out and went, yeah, I'll fight Luis Ortiz. Even the trainer said, not being funny, you've got 4 weeks of sparring, okay? You've got 8 spars. You're going to switch up to a southpaw? And he went, yeah. So we made the offer, 2 offers in fact. Like, and when you compare that to what he made to fight Wilder, but I'm not going to go into it now. I want to, so badly. But I'm going to wait till we announce the fight, and then I'll talk to you all next week in Vegas about exactly all the numbers and everything, and what these people turned down.
Andy Ruiz and obviously Michael Hunter are the 2 sort of favorites to get the AJ fight. Is there a front runner in your opinion? Is there one that you would like more? Is there one that AJ would like more? I
mean, look, we represent Michael Hunter, so that fight's a lot easier to do. Al represents Ruiz, so really, it's like, if he wants to give him the opportunity, it's there as well. Style-wise, the Ruiz fight is more exciting, in my opinion. Hunter's a tricky fight. He's a very clever fighter. I mean, there's pros for it. You know, he's got 1 defeat on his record to Usyk, so you can compare Joshua and Usyk. Andy Ruiz has got decent Mexican following. There'll be a good Hispanic interest. Could be the first Mexican world heavyweight champion. You know, there's stories. There's a couple of other guys as well who are well in the mix.
And who are they?
I'm not going into too much, but I've mentioned him in the past. But you know, for me, I do think those. I mean, the main question I get is, who is the front runner? And the front runner can change at any time. Like, I could finish this interview and look at my phone, and there's a new front runner. You know, even Luis Ortiz could come back and say, okay, do you know what? Let's go, and we'll do that. You know, the difference is obviously Ortiz is a slightly different level as a draw than Andy Ruiz, right? So obviously everyone's got a different value. So the pay-per-view numbers in the UK will be less for Andy Ruiz than they would be for Luis Ortiz. The gate will probably be less for Andy Ruiz than it would be for Luis Ortiz. So obviously he doesn't have the same value. But he's not going to take a chance like this just for nothing. He wants a big payday, and he'll get one. But I don't want it just to be about the payday. I want it to say, you know what, I think I believe it. Because I believe both.
Is that what you think Luis Ortiz was about, just the payday, and not really about the fight?
They do think they can win, but they know his prep hasn't been great. The difference between Hunter and Ruiz, Hunter's in camp. Hunter's fighting May 25th on the Usyk card, right? Ruiz has just finished the fight. Both guys are ready to go. Ortiz hasn't really been training, so he's come back from holiday, but he did box in March, so he's not like, you know, he'll have his base fitness. But I do believe that Hunter and Ruiz both believe they can beat Joshua, and I like that, because I want a proper fight. Like, I don't want to take Joshua to New York and sit there and watch him win just a 2-round walkover job. Like, I know that Ruiz will give everything, and so will Hunter. I've seen him do it in the last 2 heavyweight fights, like fights he shouldn't have won. It's looked really good, and I want that. I want someone that's really there to win, not just someone that goes, "I just get, you know, gets knocked out, thanks," and then gets out of the ring and just you never see him again. You know.
So yeah. Eddie, what are your thoughts? What happened this weekend with Amir Khan?
I think that. It's tough for us to criticise, really, because I thought he was very brave in the fight. You know, like most people, he got a heavy knockdown in the first round, but he was always trying in the fight. He was always trying to engage. He was always jumping in. He was always putting himself at risk to get knocked out. And I think I was noticing that in the corner, in the rounds previously, just every round, he just looked like he was more war-torn. And I felt like there was a very good chance that he was going to get stopped in that fight quite soon, and I think Virgil's made a decision to stop that from happening. I don't see anything wrong with that. The problem is that when you do a pay-per-view fight, you're always up against it from the fans. People are paying a lot more money than they do normally, so they want blood. They want to see the clinical ending. They want to see the knockout. And I think with Amir Khan, that's what, I say that's what he does, but that's what, you know, he's in unbelievable fights. He's been knocked out before. People were watching that fight going, I think Amir's going to get knocked out in a minute. And they wanted to see that. He got hit very low. And I just think it was a timing thing where Virgil sort of looked at Amir and felt, does he really want to continue? I don't think so. But I don't believe, when people say that Amir's a coward. He's not a coward. You know, he's a brave guy. He's fought the best. And if you watch the fight back, like in that round, he was doing quite well. He was jumping in, and I was almost watching it, going, oh, because he leaps in, you know, and he puts himself at risk. But that's what people like. So to see it end like that, when people have paid all that money, it's not good news for the show in general. But that's a problem. Now I feel it when I do a pay-per-view show. You're almost praying that it's a great fight, or you know, it's a clinical ending, because you don't want people to start moaning, and that's what they're going to do, especially when they're having to fork out all that money.
With Amir, with that ending, does a Kell Brook Amir Khan fight, I guess, still maybe not salvageable is the word,
it's
but
still there. It's not as big. It's not as big. But I think Kell might fight Crawford. I mean, that seems to be the fight that he wants at the moment. I don't think that Kell really wants the marquee time fights anymore. He just wants to jump into the biggest fights possible. But you know, Crawford's going to want the big fights, the big fights. But it's very difficult for Top Rank to deliver those big fights.
Kell Brook, you mentioned, would he be coming down to welterweight?
He would do to fight Crawford. It's not ideal for him. I mean, he can do it, but you know, really, I believe he's kind of stuck in the middle, to be honest with you. But it's hard for him to make 147. Hard. But if he's got enough time, he can do it.
Today we just learned that Gennady left his longtime trainer, Abel. You just found out?
Chris Mannix told me just when I finished that interview. Yeah.
What did you think when he told you?
I was quite surprised. I mean, was he in New York with him?
No, he wasn't at that LA presser either.
No.
He just made an IG post about it. He said it's a personal decision and a career-wise decision.
I saw Abel's quotes from Chris Mannix.
Oh,
said it was about money.
Already?
Yeah, I think so.
It was about what, money?
Money.
Money between who?
Abel and Gennady. That's what.
Oh, wow.
That's what Abel said. Apparently, I'll let it start.
Oh.
Okay.
How connected is Tom still with Gennady?
Yeah, he's involved. Yeah, I mean, look, when we had the, you know, we had meetings, me and John Skipper with Gennady and his team and Tom and, you know, Tom Presser, you know, did his thing. But Gennady's definitely steering the ship. I don't know what's happened with him and Abel. You know, it's a strange time to change trainers. But you know, if he feels like he's going to be better, it doesn't sound like it was a technical thing or it was a improvement thing. It was obviously just a dispute about something, maybe a deal or something like that.
Eddie, leaving a trainer at 37 years old.
Yeah, it's not. But you know, I said earlier in that interview is just because you're 37 and just because you've only got 5 or 6 fights left doesn't mean you can't stop trying to improve or be the best. So if you feel like you can improve with another trainer, I've seen so many fighters in the past stay with a trainer for that exact reason. Yeah, but you know, he's been good. I'm at the end now. I'll just stay. Where really, who knows what a new trainer could have brought to their career. So it surprised me though, because I thought those two were ultra tight. You know?
Who could be his trainer?
Good question. There's a lot of good trainers in America. There's a lot of understated trainers. I mean, there's a trainer called Shadid Saluki. Most of you may not have even heard of him, but he trains Anthony Sims Jr. He trains Mike Perez. He trained Lamont Brewster. You know, he's like, there's a lot of guys that don't like the limelight, that you don't really get to know about because they're not putting themselves out there.
Like a Buddy McGirt or something.
Yeah, Buddy McGirt's a good trainer. You know, Danny Jacobs trains, a great trainer. John David Jackson, Freddie Roach. You know, there's loads of guys. But it's a preference thing, isn't it? I don't know. I mean, he's going to want to stay in LA, I think, with his family set up. So.
Abel seems to be a big kind of mouthpiece, almost a promoter as well.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that might have some effect as well on Triple G as well. What do you think?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I mean, they're all questions for Triple G. We can only speculate. I wouldn't like to say something that would upset someone, especially not Gennady. So I like him a lot. No, but you know, he's a very classy guy, so it's his business, and it's just, I don't know, sad really, because they were a great team.
Can you speak about the recent selection of the Canelo Jacobs judges? I think it was one judge from the first fight, of the Canelo Golovkin fight.
Steve Weisfeld, Glenn Feldman, and Moretti.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I believe it's the same panel as the last fight, actually, identically.
Yeah, it's a rematch,
yeah, to be honest with you, they're 3 outstanding judges, and we're very happy with that selection. I mean, Glenn Feldman is an outstanding judge. Steve Weisfeld is an outstanding judge, and so is Moretti. So, although they might have given a score in the first fight that some didn't agree with, I completely 100% trust those guys to do the right thing and make sure Danny Jacobs wins that fight by any means possible. I'm joking. No, I just think they're really good, honest judges, and I stand by that. And after the fight, if there's a controversial decision, I don't have any feeling that anything until I mean, I don't get that feeling anyway. Like, people talk about, oh, boxing's corrupt. It's like, I can tell you, I think I'd know, and it's not. But hometown fighters, big name fighters, do sometimes get the rub of the green. But sometimes it can work the other way. Maybe this is a close fight, and maybe they give it to Danny Jacobs this time around. But I know those 3 judges are honest people, and I expect them to make the right decision next Saturday.
Just having now experienced the United States boxing platform and scenery, how much do you feel corruption is in play at all? Like, ever?
No. I mean, look, this is a different market. I think you've got more of a PED problem than the UK boxing.
In the United States, there's more of a
for sure. There's no testing. There's no testing at all. Outside of big fights, as in, the main fights having VADA testing, generally there's no testing. You're completely left to your own devices. So a lot of these kids coming through right now, they don't get tested. So how do we know? Look at Jarrell Miller. Jarrell Miller signed up for VADA testing. Like, to a program where he knew he was going to get tested every week, maybe every day. And he failed 3 different substances. That was a guy who knew he was being VADA tested. What about if you know you're definitely not? And it's not you might get tested, you might not. It's just you definitely won't get tested. Apart from on the night, which is a complete joke, complete waste of time. So I think, and in the UK, the British Boxing Board of Control has every fighter signed up to UKAD for random testing. You're not going to get as tested as often as you are under the VADA program that we do for big fights, but at least you've got the fear. I mean, hopefully that's enough to deter people. But then Jarrell Miller had the fear. And look what he did. But I just think that going back to corruption, no, I don't. I don't believe in that. I've never seen it. I don't believe it exists. But the PED thing, I think, is a major problem, and I think people have got to act.
Yeah, it's not going to win any brownie points saying that there's a bigger PEDs.
It's just the truth. I'm not here to win brownie points. I'm just telling you the truth. Of course, there's going to be a bigger problem because it's about 10 times the size of the UK. I don't know how much bigger is, but there's no testing. So of course there's going to be a bigger problem.
Is that something that you plan on changing?
Trying, but I don't really know what the answer is. It's very expensive. You're talking about $40,000 a fight to get tested properly in the way that you should be tested.
Yeah.
So, well, you can't do that through the whole bill. But we try for every main fight to have VADA testing in place. But every promoter's got to do it. And some fighters don't want to sign up to VADA. Some types, I'm not talking about, I mean, the WBC do a good job, but it's not, like, I've got a lot of fighters that are with the WBC that are on the VADA list that have never been tested. So the only way to do it really is to pay for what we do on the big fights, which is every week, sometimes twice a day, or 3 times in 2 days. You just don't know. It's the only way. You can't escape. But think of all the fighters in the US. How many are being tested? I don't know, 10%? Like, it's frightening.
With the rise of streaming, obviously, you sort of jumped on that wagon quickly with DAZN. But now we see like Disney Plus, Apple Plus, others, bigger companies, entering the streaming field. How do you feel about DAZN moving up their price point to $20? How do you feel about it competing with ESPN Plus, obviously owned by Disney, and them opening their own streaming platform? How do you feel about the competition right now in the streaming wars?
I think it's great for the content providers like us because there's a demand for content. When you talk about the price change, I think that was a clear move to reward loyalty. Rather than having people jump in, jump out for free trials or for $9.99 a month, what they're saying is it's $8.33 a month if you buy the annual pass.
But even that's still above market value in a sense. For like Disney Plus is going to be like $6.99. So you're looking at properties that are multi-billion-dollar companies that are much bigger. That
I think ESPN Plus will change their price point very, very
maybe.
soon. Yeah,
Maybe.
And I think ultimately when you're acquiring content like DAZN is quite quickly, not just the boxing, not just Canelo, not just
everything
Joshua,
else,
but baseball, their new baseball deal, some other big sporting news coming out soon for DAZN as well.
I want to add to that. NFL has been talking about splitting their TV and digital rights package. Do you know that DAZN has been interested at all?
They'll be in the market for sure. I mean, the reason like, contrary to what people believe, I don't work for DAZN, right? So they always ask me but I know this is true because I know how the conversation started, but the reason they moved into boxing is because a lot of those rights for other key sports weren't available at that time. They looked at boxing and they thought, that's a sport we believe is going to drive subscribers, we can have a significant impact in, but NFL, NBA wasn't available at that time. When those packages come up, they'll be in it to win it. And they're very, very aggressive. And this is a big, big 7 weeks for them in terms of subscriber numbers, because you've got obviously Friday, then you've got Canelo against Danny Jacobs, you've got Usyk, you've got all the World Boxing Super Series, you've got Joshua on June 1, then you've got Golovkin on June 8. So I think they're going to be, I don't know, doubling at least, maybe trebling their subscriber base over that period, because if you're picking up a Canelo Danny Jacobs fight for that kind of price, even if you're taking it for 1 month, you could buy, you could subscribe the night of Danny Jacobs Canelo, get that fight, get all the World Boxing Super Series, most of the semi-finals, get Usyk, get Joshua, and all for your $20. Do you know what I mean? And you'd be paying $90 for that fight on HBO, Canelo Jacobs. So it's great value. They're up against it because they don't have necessarily the promotional power or the cross-promotional power,
or the brand awareness
with a linear partner like ESPN. But they're incredibly motivated, they're incredibly powerful, and they're incredibly smart as well. I think their marketing is outstanding, their ad campaigns are excellent. It's just a case of penetrating the fight fans and understand, do you realise the value you're getting in? But it's about going beyond the fight fans. I think now, especially with their subscriber numbers, it appears that most fight fans, hardcore guys, have DAZN. But now it's a case of reaching out beyond the fight audience. And this card on Friday is a good example of a card that is really for fight fans. It's one of the cards of the year, but it's not one that's going to attract casual. Yeah, it is, and everyone in boxing is going, oh, I can't wait for Friday. But the man on the street might be talking about Wilder or Joshua or Canelo. Canelo is a guy that's going to...
NBA playoffs.
Yes, but in boxing, Canelo is a guy that's going to hit the casual market. So you need that, because the hardcore boxing fan market is not big enough to justify the numbers required.
Do you think boxing as a whole is big enough for DAZN to succeed with its competitors? Because I've always had theory that they need one of the big ones.
They need other sports, I mean, and that's why they've gone into other sports. It was never a plan to just be a boxing app. I mean, look at where they are worldwide. In Japan, they have J-League, they have Premier League, I think they have the Champions League. In Italy, they have Serie A, the main football league there. In
Germany, they're pretty big as well.
The Bundesliga, Champions League. So they're a sports platform. They're not a boxing platform. It's just that in the US, boxing was the first sport that they joined. They teamed up with.
Eddie, and are you confident that the DAZN platform, ESPN, and Fox will be in boxing for the long run, or is it just a let me try it out type thing? How do you feel?
Well, we know we've got 8 years, so we know that they're committed with us. Will they keep investing to the levels of boxing over that period, or will they just keep it stagnant? It all depends how it responds, how it drives numbers. They may go into, I mean, if you're looking at ESPN right now, you have to say, is boxing driving subscriptions for ESPN Plus? I don't think so. I think UFC is. I mean, we've seen that. Like, they've publicly, UFC have done a good job to come out and say, we gained this many subscribers on Saturday. You don't see Top Rank coming out and saying, we gained this many subscribers. But you need the big events to drive subscribers. And if you look at, and again, not criticising my friend Bob Arum, but he hasn't put on a big fight for a long time. Like, I'm talking about a big fight. I'm not talking about Crawford Khan, I'm talking about a big fight. So, and same with DAZN, We need fights like Canelo, Danny Jacobs. We can't say pay-per-view is dead and you don't want to pay 90 fights that you would normally pay $90 for, if that makes sense, you know? So Canelo Fielding was great, but that's only a fight that would do a couple of 100,000 buyers on HBO. Now with Jacobs Canelo, that's a fight that could do 800,000 buyers on HBO. Well, that's on DAZN. That's why we've got to make fights like Joshua against Wilder. You know, we've got to make fights like Jacobs against Golovkin or Canelo against Golovkin. You know, Andrade against Golovkin. You know, Usyk against Joshua. You've got to make those big pay-per-view style fights to be able to continue that message of saying, we're providing you with the pay-per-view fights without charging you the extra money.
You had mentioned it before that you felt Bob Arum was getting a little desperate. Do you feel his recent comments regarding now Heyman and the way he negotiates, do you feel that?
I think Bob's going through a weird patch at the moment. Like, he does this though. I think he gets a little bit erratic at times. I think like he's an ultra smart man. He's always run a really solid business, but I think he's just lost his shit a little bit at the moment, and he's just like, he's just doing some crazy things, and he's got to be careful because he'll make mistakes. Like, I think he's spending an awful lot of money at the moment for very little like, you know, I mean, he said to us, what does Eddie Hearn don't know dick about, but he's right compared to him. I've been promoting boxing in America for 6 months. I'm just learning. He's been here for what, 60 years promoting boxing. You know, so of course he's going to know a lot more than me. But when you're putting on fights like Pulev against Dinu, it's a Bulgarian against a Romanian, on ESPN, linear, recording their lowest ever numbers since they returned to boxing, that ain't a good sign. And I don't see him putting on any big fight. I mean, next weekend, he's putting on Beterbiev against someone else on May 4th, on Cinco de Mayo, on the same night as Canelo Jacobs.
Where is that fight, by the way?
I've absolutely no idea, but he's the greatest promoter of all time.
Do you think Bob's been spiteful to the rest of the boxing community, like to you, to Al Heyman? Do you think that's been detrimental to the business of boxing in a way? I
think it's good for boxing. I think it's good for boxing.
You think just promoting?
I mean, look, when he came out and attacked Al Heyman in the ring, I think that's good for boxing. It's bad for boxing because their relationship means those fights won't get made. But it's good for boxing because people are talking about it. I mean, that was actually one of the highlights of the night.
Well, come on, the night wasn't the greatest. I mean,
no, but that's what I'm saying. It was one of the highlights of the night, wasn't it? But you know, one of the problems I think with pay-per-view right now, if you look at the last 3 pay-per-view cards that we've had in America, Crawford Khan, Spence Garcia, and Pacquiao Broner, I'm not sure that the away fighter won. I mean, on the card Spence Garcia, the away fighter didn't win 1 round in the main event or the entire undercard. Right? On Saturday night, the away fighter didn't win 1 round. I think actually someone gave Amir a round, one of the judges, on the whole card as well. And Pacquiao Broner, same thing. So that's good news for DAZN, because that's the message of saying, guys, how long are you going to do this for? Like, US fight fans, wake up. How long are you going to... It's $80.
But to be fair, I mean, both the PBC pay-per-views were mildly successful. Yeah. Obviously, we don't know the numbers for Crawford Khan. Mike Woods came out earlier today, said it was about 150,000 buys, allegedly.
That's poor.
That's poor, obviously, but we know that Crawford isn't the draw that
Bob said it was going to do 1 million buys. Bob said it would do 1 million buys, and Bob said that your grandparents or your grandkids will be talking about that fight for a long, long time. That's why I love Bob, because he's got so much front. He does not give a fuck about me, you, Heyman, anyone. And you've got to admire someone who is 87 years old and still standing up there having a go, you know, and winning. Like, he's got a great business. Top Rank, I respect Top Rank. You know, they're a proper promotional company. They're probably the closest thing here to us in the UK, if that makes sense. You know, I like the guys there, Carl and Brad, they're all good people, but Bobby's mental. But you can't not like him. I mean, when I was sitting in the press conference room the other week, I was almost in awe of him. Just watching him, listening. I mean, he was talking absolute gibberish. But it doesn't matter, because he has that aura. And you've got to respect him. Because when we have a chat every now and again, I say, yeah, when I did Joshua Klitschko at Wembley in front of 90,000, he says, well, when I did the Rumble in the Jungle, you know, or the Thriller in Manila, I'm thinking, oh shit, you know, but I do think he's under pressure. And I think UFC will be turning the screw at ESPN.
Why do you think that relationship can be complementary, beneficial to both UFC and Top Rank? Why is there seemingly an adversarial partnership with those two within ESPN? Both the fans, media, everyone's sort of making that way.
I don't know. I didn't know that was the case. I mean, I just think that ESPN will be, UFC will know they're driving the numbers on ESPN Plus, and they'll be wanting more money, more dates, get rid of the boxing,
Top Rank
kick Aram out. Why do you want Aram? He's doing Dinu against Pulev and Beterbiev on Cinco de Mayo, and all these other fights that no one's watching. So, what do you want boxing for? Just give UFC more dates. That's what will be the message internally. Probably the same at DAZN. You know, maybe Golden Boy is saying to DAZN, fucking get rid of Matchroom. What are you talking about? You know, but this is the world we live in. Kill or be killed.
And Eddie, last thing, just based off your personal experiences with Al Haymon, do you feel that Bob Arum was a little bit out of line in terms of how he described that Al Haymon goes about his business with other promoters or whatnot? Where do you stand?
you know,
calling him a cancer, you know, certain.
Yeah, that's not nice. I mean, I don't think. I think boxing is a business that can leave you very bitter. And if you're not bitter at 87 years of age through working in boxing for 60 years, you're not human. Because it can't, like, I wouldn't say I'm even there yet, but I've only been doing it 10 years. I've been in boxing for 30 years in my life, but in the business for 10 years. And I wouldn't say I was bitter, but I could understand getting there, you know? So like, I know there's a lot of people that are out to try and stop the progression of other promoters. I'm talking about promoters or advisors, you know, who live and breathe that. What can we do today? Let's book that venue and fuck them on that. Let's sign that fighter and fuck them on that. But maybe I need to start adopting that, because I'd rather see people do well, to be honest with you. Maybe because I haven't been bitten by the bitterness bug yet. But I really like seeing people do well. So it's a bit like when you asked me about, do you think Al Haymon will allow Andy Ruiz to fight Joshua? That question worries me. Like, and I know you're right to ask. No, but you're right. No, but you're right to ask it, because that worries me about the sport of boxing. Because how, as an advisor, could you stop that opportunity? You know. So my answer is no. I don't believe he would. But if he does, like, and you know, but then Bob comes out and says, well, 50-50 split, Crawford Spence, and
joint TV.
Yeah. But then now Crawford. Spence will go, hang on a minute, I just done 300,000 buys. You done 150. You know, I had 43,000 at mine, you had 11,000. You know? But the big kicker will be how many buys will Spence Porter do? Because Mikey Garcia is a big draw, you know, in terms of the Hispanic audience. So that will be a good yardstick of pay-per-view, Spence against Porter. How many buys will that do? I just think that pay-per-view, you know, the only way that pay-per-view can survive, in my opinion, and it's hard for me because in the UK I do pay-per-view, but it's $25. It's a big difference.
But do you see that eventually happen in the UK as well? That eventually pay-per-view will go away and it'll be
not at that price point, because it's like
it's just cheap.
I say it's nothing, but it's like, I always think, you know, when they were doing Pacquiao and Mayweather and things like that at $100, there's so much money. You know, I'd rather go and just buy a ticket in the tiers. I mean, you can't even get in for $100 on those sort of fights, but it's like, it's not accessible, is it? You know, how can you expect to grow an audience if you're trying to charge them that sort of money for a major fight? And I think if you're not giving value on the undercard and you're not putting competitive matches on, at some point, the public's just going to go. It doesn't take a lot, you know, for half the audience to go, I'll leave that, I'll watch it on the internet later tonight. Do you know what I mean? Like, in the way that technology is advancing, piracy now is a major problem. You know? So people are illegally streaming so much, trying to find a stream, do this, you know. And you know it affects the numbers. I mean, we see it on ours and we're only $25. But I just think for that kind of money, it's not going to be long before fans just go, do you know what? Like, and events like Crawford Khan, not the event as a whole, but the way it ended, turn people off to a state they go, I spent $80 on that. Fucking guy's just got one in the nuts and then not carried on. No?
Well, luckily the buys were low, so it's only hardcore fans.
Yeah. But you know, 150, if that is the case, it's terrible. And actually, Top Rank would have done their absolute conkers on that show. What I mean by that is they lost a lot of money. That's how we say it in England.
Always a pleasure talking to you, Eddie.
Thank you,
Cheers,
Eddie.
guys. Thank you. Cheers.